Some encounters don't begin with a glance. They begin with faith in what's right. The 19th century, America, a nation divided, the North free, the South enslaved. The cracks were widening, threatening to tear a nation apart. In that storm, there were two men, not from the same background, not the same color, but with the same hope: true freedom for all. Abraham Lincoln, a country lawyer, born into a poor family in Kentucky in 1809. From a young age, he faced many hardships and challenges. His family lived in a simple log cabin without many comforts. But it was in these circumstances that Lincoln learned the value of perseverance and determination. A self-taught man who became a statesman, he had to work hard from a young age, teaching himself to read and write. Lincoln didn't have the opportunity to attend a formal school, but he always craved knowledge. He often borrowed books from neighbors and read them by candlelight, no matter how tired he was after a long day's work. He didn't grow up with a silver spoon in his mouth. Instead, he lived in a simple log cabin, where he learned the value of perseverance and determination. Those years living in poverty forged within Lincoln a strong spirit and an unyielding will. He understood that only through constant effort could he change his life. Power wasn't in his blood. He didn't come from a wealthy family or have any political connections. Lincoln began his political career with the smallest of steps, from participating in local debates to becoming a renowned lawyer. He always sided with the common people, the workers and farmers, the people he understood best. But he had the most fearsome thing in politics: a conscience. It was his conscience and honesty that helped him become one of America's greatest presidents, leading the country through the Civil War and abolishing slavery. Lincoln was not only a brilliant leader, but also a visionary, always putting the interests of the nation and its people first. He left a great legacy, not only in American history, but also in the hearts of every freedom-loving and justice-seeking person around the world. And him, Frederick Douglass, born a slave, but he read, he wrote, he escaped, and he spoke out. The first time he stood before a crowd of white people, his voice trembled. But from then on, he became the voice of the voiceless. And then, as fate would have it, their paths crossed, not in a grand conference, not on the battlefield, but in letters. Douglass wrote to Lincoln, not to praise, but to question. In his letter, he didn't hesitate to express his disappointment. He wanted to know why Lincoln, a man known for his integrity and decisiveness, hadn't taken stronger action to end slavery. Douglass, a former slave who had liberated himself, understood better than anyone the cruelty and inhumanity of this system. He had dedicated his life to fighting for freedom and equality, and he couldn't understand why Lincoln, with the power in his hands, wasn't using it to end this injustice. Douglass's letter wasn't just a question, but a call to action, a challenge to Lincoln. Why hadn't he spoken out more forcefully against slavery? Douglass wasn't just asking a question, he was challenging Lincoln to act. He emphasized that Lincoln's silence could be misinterpreted as complicity with injustice. Douglass knew Lincoln was facing pressure from many sides, but he believed there was no excuse for delaying the end of slavery. He wrote that Lincoln's silence not only hurt the oppressed, but also damaged Lincoln's own honor. Douglass urged Lincoln to stand up and do what was right, not only for the sake of the oppressed, but for the sake of the entire nation. Why was a man of integrity like him still hesitating? Douglass knew Lincoln had the power to change history, but he needed to act immediately. Douglass's letter was an urgent plea, a reminder that time was not on the side of the oppressed. Douglass also emphasized that every day that passed without action was another day that thousands continued to suffer pain and injustice. He urged Lincoln to use his power to end slavery immediately, not only to free the oppressed, but also to reaffirm the values of freedom and justice that America had always prided itself on. Douglass believed Lincoln could become a hero in the eyes of the entire nation if he dared to stand up and do what was right. Douglass's letter was a call to action, a challenge, and a reminder that time was not on the side of the oppressed. Lincoln read. He wasn't angry, he thought, because Douglass wasn't just writing with his hand. He wrote with truth, with the experience of being bound, beaten, and sold like property. And then Lincoln began to change. Lincoln once said, "A nation conceived in liberty cannot endure, permanently half slave and half free. Douglass, with equal conviction, declared, "If there is no struggle, there is no progress." They were never close friends, but that didn't stop them from respecting each other. Lincoln, born into poverty, rose to become president of a divided nation. Douglass, once a slave, became a renowned orator and activist. Both came from different beginnings, but they shared a common goal: freedom and justice for all. Lincoln, with his steadfastness and determination, led the country through its darkest hours. Douglass, with his intelligence and eloquence, became the voice of the voiceless. But they listened to each other. They understood that to change society, cooperation and dialogue were necessary. Lincoln and Douglass met several times, each meeting bringing new ideas and a deeper understanding of the country's situation. Their conversations weren't just about politics, but about human rights, about the future of a divided nation. They discussed ways to end slavery, ways to build a more just society. Each meeting was a step forward in their long and arduous journey. During the war, they were a light for each other. Lincoln found support and encouragement from Douglass, while Douglass saw in Lincoln a leader capable of changing history. They were not just allies in war, but companions in the pursuit of justice. In the most difficult times, they leaned on each other, finding comfort and encouragement in one another. Lincoln listened to Douglass's advice, and Douglass found hope in Lincoln's actions. Together they overcame challenges. Together they fought for a better future. One man on the platform of power. Lincoln, with his authority, used his platform to promote change and call for unity. He used his speeches to convey the message of freedom and justice. His words touched the hearts of millions, awakening in them hope and determination. Lincoln worked tirelessly to end slavery, to build a nation where everyone had equal rights. He used his power to do what was right, to bring about real change. One man outside the fence. Douglass, with his powerful voice, inspired thousands and called for the end of slavery. He used his speeches to call for change, to awaken hope and determination in his listeners. Douglass fought tirelessly for the rights of the oppressed, for freedom and justice. He used his voice to do what was right, to bring about real change. Douglass became a symbol of perseverance and courage, a man who never gave up the fight for justice. But both were voices of what's right. Together they created a new chapter in history, a chapter filled with hope and change. They are a testament to the power of cooperation and courage. Lincoln and Douglass proved that, despite differences in background and perspective, people can work together to achieve great things. They fought together for a better future, for a just and free society. Their story is a reminder that in the most difficult times, we need to lean on each other, find strength in one another, and together overcome any challenge. They were a light for each other, and a light for us all. Lincoln invited Douglass, a black man, to the White House, a first in history, and in front of hundreds of white people he asked, "Douglass, what did you think of my speech? Mr. President, that was the best speech an American president has ever given." History sometimes doesn't need complete agreement. It just needs people who dare to speak, who dare to listen, and who dare to step through the shadows together.